and parents shouldn't forget that Sudan now is not the same Sudan.
It's not the same. That's a one.
You know, you send your children there on the hope that if you send them away from here, they're going to be a bit more sort of, you know, disciplined, and they're not going to get the bad influences that they'll get here. But Sudan now, you know, it's very open. People's sense of morality is not that strong.
Exactly.
You know, religiousness is not that strong, really. So you have to, even if you're sending your girls there, you have to think who they're meeting, what they're doing. You know, so it's going to be the same, but actually more open over there because you don't get the same kind of exposure of here. You know, people here have boundaries and limits. In Sudan, it can be a bit of a, you know, tricky thing. But the thing is about families being split, that's another issue. That's why when I started, I talked about myself as being the majority of Sudanese. And I spoke about my parents my dad's gone back to the Middle East to work, and my mother spends most of her time in between. So that happens to a lot of families here. So without them sending their parents away, a lot of parents decide at some point that they want to go to the Middle East, then they go. So it's kind of, they sort of, you know, uproot themselves from here, and that causes, you know, a bit of a split in the family. When the family's already been split from leaving Sudan to coming here to moving, so that is an issue as well that people deal with.
كنت عاوزة أسألك يا شيراز، تكلمت شوية برضه عن يعني تكلمنا عن التعليم والقصة الدين وكده. كنت عاوزة أسألك عن موضوع برضه يعني طرقت له سريع كده قصة الزواج. تخيلي واحدة من العوائل السائلين اللي هو على الأبهات والأمهات إنهم عيالهم قالوا إنهم بيتأكدوا يعني إنهم يعرسوا ناس سودانيين يعني خصوصا البنات. فلو تتكلموا لنا عن القصة دي رأيك فيها شنو هو؟
it's a big issue. يعني حتى يعني عملنا parenting class كانوا بيتكلموا عن يعني أيوة أنا لو ولدي تزوج واحدة يعني ما سودانية كده وكده أكيد no one will talk about إذا بدي أنا أتزوج يعني دي حاجة it's not even you will not even talk about it. That is an absolute no-no يعني it is really an absolute no-no from a lot of people. But you know it's not quite, you know, sort of split. There are a lot of people who have married that side, and families have been, you know, slowly accepting it. But it is a bit of a challenge, and it is something that keeps parents kind of awake at night and kind of really worrying. We're not as open as other communities, I don't think. I mean, I think when it happens we are, but for us I think it's more of a nightmare or more of a worry than other people. We tend to have this thing where we just don't want to mix. But I think of it, I don't have a, you know, obviously I think everybody should make their own decision based on what their own convictions are. I don't have an issue with anyone, what decision they make. But I think it kind of, parents have to be realistic. They have to think that their children are growing up in an environment where we as a Sudanese are always a minority wherever we go. I don't know why. I mean, there is quite a lot of us, but for some reason we always end up being a very small, tiny little minority wherever we go. And we always live away from each other. We never have like a Sudanese central. You know, we don't have like a North Pole, or we don't have kind of a Bedford. You know, we don't have those kind of things. If we live here, we'll make sure that we live far away from another Sudanese family. Just so we so we do that to begin with, and then afterwards we worry about kind of.
That is very true.
Yeah, and it's, you know, they have to be kind of realistic. So finding a Sudanese mate is going to be very difficult. Because there's not that many of us, we're split over different places. So they have to be a bit more open-minded. You know, a lot of people are not at all. So a lot of people now, sort of young people, you do get people that do marry into the Sudanese community, but you do get a lot of people that marry out, you've got a lot of people, that's why I think a lot of people travel back to Sudan, and they travel to the Middle East in the hope that, you know, they can find someone who is Sudanese in those places. So it's a big issue.
Oh, my experience. Yes, I did. We met at university, so I went and got a degree and a husband in the bargain as well. 2 for 1, a both as we say. Why would they want free? Yeah, exactly, all the time. Okay, I don't know. I completely identify with what you said. It is very hard. As Sudanese, we come here in the diaspora, and we tend to kind of like I don't know, is it تكون على الماء, say انتشروا. Don't sit together. It's like almost like we're Sudanese, no, and it doesn't help that the political situation in Sudan is constantly, as I said, there's all this negative mantra coming out to you. You say, well, are you Sudanese? No, I'm not Sudanese, I'm Egyptian, Turkish, Arabic, and you speak Arabic, you don't look Sudanese. So when you first come, definitely, I think there is a sense of misplaced identity, and it takes us a few years to find that, and then al-Hameen back for home. So no, we have to have the Arabic Sudanese school and the Eid and all that, which is lovely. You see that now. I would love to see it more consistent, especially for the youngsters. And you know, I applaud you, and I'm so proud you listen about parenting classes, because I have been a parent. It's very interesting to have that as a resource, whether if you're Sudanese background or any background. But it is difficult finding someone of your culture. But I think when we're Sudanese, definitely at my age, we weren't going. I think between 18 to 21, we weren't going back to Sudan for university. We were firmly here. We came here because they wouldn't let us into universities in Sudan, having done O levels, and for me, it was like it has to be someone from this country. But I tried to find there were the boundaries. There was, you know, okay, if it's not Sudanese, then it has to be an Arab. If it's not Arab, it has to be Muslim. There was those three boundaries. If it's out of those three, then don't come home. That was the, you know. So obviously those were in my head. I didn't choose my husband with them, but that's something that's just throughout your life that's there. But any marriage has its challenges, as we know. In the first one, I'm sure married people here will agree with me, as any relationship does, and ups and downs. So on top of that, then you add to it cross-culture, and you find, I think, going in naively, I thought, because we're both Muslim, it's going to be fine. But he was Muslim, born and bred here, very, very strict Muslim background. And for me, being half lived in Sudan, where for the first 15 years of my life, it was 55% Muslims, 45% Christians. They celebrated our Eids, we celebrated their Christmases. They came to our bikas, we went to theirs. It was a very liberal community. I found that very hard. I was thinking, well, hang on, I'm in the UK now. What do you mean? So that was the dichotomy. But you get over it as long as you have supportive, extended families on both sides, which we're lucky we had. And then once you cement, I think, any marriage with children, as they say, it becomes about something else, a different state. But any marriages have their challenges, whether you're married to a Sudanese from even, I'm sure Sudanese girls who marry Sudanese guys, it will be interesting over the next 20 years to see the ones who come back from Sudan with husbands that are born and bred in Sudan, or husbands that have come from the UK. It will all add to the mix.
They all have their challenges, I mean, now as a community, we actually, it's hard to have that conversation with the parents. They don't accept it. What they want us to do is create sort of a forum where the young people can meet, so something can happen. You know, it's not kind of about us keep an open mind to what other options are there. No, it's you have to do something to help us to make sure that the young people meet and marry. So
dating agency.
There's nothing wrong with that. No,
there's nothing wrong with that. I think they're more open-minded. The children of today, who lived in the social media era.
There's nothing wrong with it at all. But it has to be done with both the parents' mentality opening up, and for that to happen, for them to consider if that doesn't go through, that there could be other options as well. But it's a very sort of difficult, sensitive subject. So
Sudanese-husband.net.
But like you said,
spouse, make it to propose.
Yeah, you're right. Actually, we'll cover also. Sudanese partner. Can we say partner or spouse?
That means something has its own connotation. So that's a no-no from the beginning.
It's another sort of challenge for the second generation, because like you said, they can marry from here, they can marry someone from here who's not Sudanese, or they can marry from Sudan, someone who they don't share the same, it'll still be a challenge, or they can marry someone from Khalij and it'll still be a challenge. Whatever they do, there's going to be a challenge. So,
I think most of the Sudanese girls that I know in this country said that they don't want to marry a Sudanese person.
Why is that? Really?
What reason do they give?
They didn't say, they just said definitely not.
What do you think the reasons are?
I don't know, it could be anything, but I didn't ask them, I just laughed.
I think Sudanese culture is very conservative, and we live in a world which is no longer conservative. And the quicker Sudanese culture, both in Sudan and here, catches up with the fact that it is not the 20s, the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, the easier it's going to be. Because that is, I think personally, Annie, there is, even this conversation seems to me so strange, but and this is, I understand the culture where we come from, but at the end of the day, it is 2014, and we need to move with that. And this is, unfortunately, the longer that the generations of our fathers and our grandfathers, which of course, because we are Sudanese, there is an utmost amount of respect that is always going to be there. And this is what you're born with, and this is the end of the day. But unfortunately, you know, we are living, as somebody mentioned, social media world. It doesn't even have to be social media. It's just, even without social media, it's 2014. So the fact that we are having a conversation about, oh, you know, it has to be somebody from this particular, to me is strange. You fall in love with who you fall in love with, and you marry who you marry. And that's my belief.
I don't think have a conversation in a parenting class full of Sudanese people.
But we have, I mean, the thing is, and you know, you said it's interesting. We come to another part of the world, and Sudanese people don't live next to each other. Why is that? I think that's a very interesting question. Why is that? Because I personally, I know what my answer is. Because there is perhaps a need to present of what it means to be Sudanese, or التمسك للتقاليد بتاعتنا, and then there is the reality.
Yeah, it's true. You know, people be like, I want to be away from Shamarat. Why? Because you think that you might do something that, or people might see you doing something and they might judge you, and they might not, you know, they'll talk about you, and then they'll, you know, so there's this worry about, the outlook from the community towards you. So you're already running away from that community because you don't want to adhere to their rules or whatever.
But it's unfortunately, this is what's driving the community apart. It's what is driving people apart. So we talk about we're in a diaspora and let's get together and connect. However, there's always going to be this sense of judgment. So as long as that is prevalent, then there is no hope for Sudanese. I don't think.
Is the reason, Shiraz, إنه الإيفنتس اللي بتتعمل لما لا سودانيين الشباب بيكونوا مختفين منها؟ عمرنا شوفوا. يعني أنا أقول لك حاسة مثلا الجروب حقتنا دي ليها 5 سنين. بنتقابل مرة في الشهر، كويس؟ وأنا حاولت أدخل كمية من الناس في الجروب، في الشباب. ما بيجوا.
Maybe it's just I don't know.
أنا داير أعرف شنو يعني أنا أعمل شنو يعني أنا شخصيا بسأل روحي السؤال ده، في شنو نحن اللي بنعمله اللي بيخليهم يفروا مننا؟ أو نعمل شنو عشان نجذبهم لنا؟
To be honest, I still don't understand why they don't want to marry Sudanese people. I mean, it's not like I don't know. Like it's just weird. Like why, when I ask them, they say no.
I think it may be because it's going to come with a certain set of rules and expectations. I don't even know what forums there are.
لو ليه أنا بتكلم لك عن حتى الناس اللي أنا دخلتهم في الجروب اللي مثلا النيوز فاكتور دي، أنا إذا كنت بتتكلم عن الشباب اللي إحنا ما جذبناهم، أنا شخصيا قابلت مع النيوز فاكتور ده اللي هم أنتم ما أعرف شو الميل الليست حقتكم فيها كم فيها 100 وزيادة مش كده. تمشي الإيفنتس حقت السودانيز كوميونتي ما في زول بيجي.
يعني
حتى عادي لما يعزمون بيجي يقول لك هو از بورينج. فانا داير اعرف شنو هو البورينج اذا وبعدين انا السؤال الاساسي انه انتم نحن وي ونت تو بي سودانيز شنو هم عايزين يبقوا سودان؟
لكن هم ما عايزين
حاجه في السودان
هم ما عايزين قالوا السياسه، هم قالوا يعني الناس الجمعيات بتاعت الناس الاورجنايزيشنز اللي بتكون run by older people كلها سياسيه. And it's going to be a lot of friction and people fighting.
في حاجات كثيرة ما فيها سياسة.
Remember they have that in their heads though. That's the issue. You know, هنا بيكونوا ناس معينين وهنا في ناس كذا.
something sold to you, it's a cultural event, then it should be cultural. And just compare myself last Saturday, yeah? The amount of youngsters, and different generations, this was the beauty of it, there was different generations, different mixes, different ethnic backgrounds. All of them had an experience to do with Sudan. And they were lining out the door. And for me, it was, that, to be honest, that and today is the second group Sudanese thing I've gone to in at least the last 10 years.
What is the launch of the book? The book launch?
Sorry?
What is the
So what I'm saying is something like that, for the young ones, and I even took my children to go and instill a pride, have something organized, a pride of being Sudan. I actually thought, I heard about this because I had
تقول لي حاجة بسيطة عن البوك لأنه أنا رسلت المعلومة دي واستدحت.
I wanted actually to raise this point now. Shiraz is the name of it.
Yeah, the book is, a lot of people will probably know.
look it up.
I know.
كويس أنا لقيته ذكرتني.
نيلي ماسكاو لو كده.
I've read it. I've finished it. That's why I'm starting the SSUB one. But yes, the book is called I Know to Sudan. It's been organized by a fantastic team by Rod Usher, who spent his formative years in Sudan, an Englishman, and went there as a teacher in the early 1960s. Jamila Majid, Amal Osman, and Ali Abdullah Ali Rahman. So it was a fantastic effort for the Sudanese community and a real fantastic success. And it was really in the making as the product of something called Creative Writings of the Sudan. They had a competition that started actually in December of last year, and there was going to be 3 prizes that were judged by Leila Wal-Ila, who's a Sudanese married to Scotland, I think, and had the Pulitzer Prize. So the competition has been judged by Leila, who's a Sudanese author, a well-known Sudanese author, and she has a piece in the book as well. And they invited lots of Sudanese of different generations, or non-Sudanese, anyone who's had a positive experience with Sudan. They invited them and they collated all the pieces. They had to return only 2 because their 2 rules were pieces of non-political background and non-religious background or subject. And then, and they, through donations from within the Sudanese community and outside the community, they collated this fantastic work of art, I believe. And the beauty of it was that it brought the 2 Sudans. There were the Southern Sudanese pieces from people who identify themselves as South Sudan and North Sudan. It's a collection really of what the young minds of Sudan are across the world. And it will also then, for us, rebalance all the negativity that comes via the media and propaganda about what it is to come from Sudan. And maybe negate why we have this factor of as soon as we land in Heathrow or Gatwick, in Teshilu. Maybe then we will come together. Maybe then when we have a Jariya Sudaniya meetings, as you said, there is now a community that calls themselves the Dinka, a community that calls themselves the Mahas, a community that, yes, okay, but we're all actually part from the same Sudan. Yeah. And this is in this book, and that's the beauty. I mean, one of the most beautiful pieces that I felt, or 2 pieces, was one called Wahid Sudan, was written by a Southern Sudanese lady living in the States, and the other piece, which I believe is the equal or counterpart to it, is my 2 brothers, or a card of my brother by a surgeon who's a northerner who lives here, and they both talk about the same point, and they both come to the exact same conclusion: the division of Sudan. And the conclusion is, it is a border drawn by politicians. Did we want it as a people? We're living in the UK, and to have a local thing, we're having now, Scotland is going to vote, is it in 6 weeks' time, about a referendum to divide from the UK, but yet, part of the democracy, they're asking the people of Scotland, and they're publicising it, and everyone's allowed an opinion. Even the people in England are allowed an opinion. I think Jon Snow is doing a show about it in Channel 4, about the people in England saying to Scotland, please stay within the Union. But as people of Sudan, the old Sudan, and I'm talking about the old Sudan, the Wahid Sudan, did anyone ever ask us what we want to do? Did anyone ever invite us by default to go to the Sudanese embassy and vote and say we want to divide or not? And I think this book is a clear message that we didn't, but it's happened. You cannot undo history. However, I think it's our job and our legacy, can I say, as generations, 2nd, 3rd, part from the UAE, part who are born and bred here, or part who've come here as teenagers, is to pass down to our children that we have always come from one Sudan. We were the biggest country in Africa. And it's sad that we're not anymore. It's really, it is truly sad. I think that's. I have so much to say about the book. Suffice to say, I've read it from page to page, and every time I read it, it reminds me that we are Muslim. It's a border written in ink. It means nothing. If we want to stay united, we can, and if we don't, it is still in our hands. And it's it's all in our hands, in the hands of the future generations.
Yeah. Of course, this is a whole separate.
Of course, yes.
But this was a project.
Yeah.
And there is money behind it. And even if you just count the people who wrote, published their stories and poetry here, or could fill that, and their parents and friends, they could fill that coffee shop.
Yeah.
If it is, if people go towards that direction, this is your suggestion. That better than having
political gatherings.
Yeah, I agree absolutely. Then the second thing is about al-istighlal, division. فعلا, if you follow the whole experience of the Scottish English, you think how stupid we were, not to do anything about it, not to explore, just people who had guns decide what they want to do, and that is it. And I think, I hope everybody would try to follow in detail what has been happening in Scotland, but for the last 2 years maybe until now, and until September, where there is very, very rich dialogue.